Hello.
We'll get started in about 3 or 4 minutes.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to get started. My name is Dan Rodriguez. We have Christina Evanson, Assistant Engineer in the room. Holly Swank, Ward 1 Councilwoman, excuse me. Ray Ford, Ward 1 Representative. And then we have Mr. Jim Smolik on from the Zoning Board. We have Mr. Molesky on, Councilman Molesky at large. We have Councilman Winkle on. We have Mr. Ken Wilson, Ward 3 Representative. We have Mr. James Cleveland, Ward 4 representative. And can I ask who is owner? Is that Mr. Ed Dunham? Can you unmute yourself?
Michael Borrow.
Okay, I'm sorry. Michael Borrow on with us, Ward 2 representative.
Yes.
And then our caller, who's our caller?
You can unmute them.
Okay, well, we'll identify them as we go. Mr. Burrow, everybody, if you guys want to just stay on mute, it's just a lot cleaner until we, if there's any questions or anything like that, everybody can just stay on mute. And then we'll go ahead and if there's a question or whatever, at that time you can unmute and then join in. Excuse me 1 second, make sure I let everybody in. Looks like we have Brendan McCool with us as well from Ward 3. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with old business. We haven't met in quite some time. We do have a quorum this evening. I believe Lucy Rodriguez, our Secretary for Engineering, sent out the minutes from our last meeting for January 28th, 2020. We need to approve those minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'd like to make the motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Smolik.
Second.
Second by Mr. Molesky.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. I know this is kind of difficult. I'm trying to speak loud enough for everybody to hear me. With this mask on, it's kind of difficult to speak out. But I just want to go straight down the agenda. There's just a couple of projects that we're going to be working on or that we have been working on that I believe is some good information for everybody. So our first project, we've been talking about it for a long time, for a couple of years now, is our Mill Creek Conservation and Flood Control Project. That project is still ongoing. We are in design. We're in the final stages of our design. We're about 90% done with that project from design standpoint. We have begun some property easement acquisitions, but we have hit a stumbling block with those property acquisitions. One of the property owners does not want to sign at this point in time. So we are looking at some alternatives to be able to get that property owner on board and to continue moving forward. So we have to do a little bit more legwork on that. And hopefully we can get that done in the next 30 to 60 days and get that property owner on board. And that way we can continue down our property acquisition phase. And then hopefully at some point into the future, either late this year, we'll definitely have our plans done. It's a matter of financing at that point. And that financing, we'll have to discuss that internally with the mayor. That'll have to be approved by council at some point. So we'll be moving forward with that at some point this year. But financing is definitely going to be an issue as we still have an estimated $3.5 million of work left to do on this project. I will say that I've been told in conversation that we have received, or we haven't gotten our written documentation yet, but we have gotten some verbal confirmations that we are going to receive another $500,000 in ODNR grants towards the project. So that's going to help us lower our costs from the city standpoint. But we still haven't gotten that in writing, so we can't count on that till we do get it in writing. And as soon as we do, I'm sure we'll put it to use with the project. Okay, so that's pretty much a good update on that project.
Mr. Engineer, is there a reason why the one resident is holding out on it? Anything in particular?
They don't like the location of our channel. We have to have an 80-foot easement with our channel. It kind of bisects a piece of the property. So we're kind of looking at one alternative route, but that routing may not be feasible. So before we move on and do any other work on the project, we're going to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's and then continue to move forward with our acquisitions. But yeah, it's just a routing thing at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the Mill Creek project? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to our second item on the agenda. When I first came to start working here, you know, stormwater is always a big thing in the city of North Ridgeville. So I've noticed that a lot of the work that's been done over the last several years has been, as things happen, kind of reactive more than proactive. So with our second item, the city budgeted this year on our capital improvement, or not capital improvement, but into our budget, we budgeted some monies to seek out a consultant engineering firm to develop a citywide stormwater management plan that will help us put our dollars where the work's gonna benefit the entire city the most. So we're gonna be soliciting letters of intent, letters of interest, do a request for qualifications at some point this year. We hope to have that done in the spring. And then that way we can get that out and get that started. We're gonna do it as a phased approach. We're probably doing it in a two-phase approach because I have done some interim lead work on this, and I'm getting quotes back of anywhere from 150,000 to 250,000 to do an entire city of our size. So obviously we don't have that kind of budget for this project. So we're gonna have to do it in a phased approach still. But most of the eastern part of the city will be helped in general with stormwater by our Mills Creek flood control project. So we're probably gonna end up starting on the west side of town and the center of town and kind of see what we have there and start the phasing there, because we do have a solution for our eastern portion of our city. So when we do get to that point, we're gonna do a phased approach, and we're gonna solicit for an engineering consultant to basically develop a plan, a capital improvement plan, review our system, and kind of guide us where we should go. Because like I said, we've kind of been reactive. I wanna start being proactive versus reactive to these situations. Any questions on that?
Yes, quick question. Refresh my memory. I know I can go back and look at our finance committee minutes. How much did we budget for that?
We
If you know offhand, I can always go back and look.
No, we budgeted $100,000 for that. So that's, again, a reason why we have to do a phased approach, because we've only budgeted about half of what we may need for this. So once we get there, we'll have to see what we have, but we did budget $100,000 for this professional services.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Dan, I have a quick question. I assume for that price, there's going to be no hydraulic modeling.
Well, I'd like them to do a hydraulic model. We have some hydraulic modeling done with our other project that we can incorporate in the Mills Creek project. It's all going to depend, Mr. Smolik, on what we can get for our dollar. I want to see that model. I want to see what's coming in and what we can get out at the same time. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is with a model. So I've been talking to some engineering firms, and again, the higher ones are getting that big model, getting everything out that's coming in out. And in order to do that, it costs. And that's the higher end, is the 250,000.
Correct.
So we'll have to see what we can do there. We want that model, because that's going to be the basis of everything that we do.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Great. Okay, so that's going to be a big thing for the city. That's going to carry us forward from a stormwater management point. It's really going to help us in our day-to-day activities again. But we also have our service garage that does a lot of work. And if I can bring it up real quick, I just want to show one picture that I was shown today of the work that our service garage is doing in our ditches, and so that everybody can see the good work that they're doing. If you guys can bear with me for a second, I'll see if I can figure this out. Oh, you know what? I didn't put it in a location. Okay, I may not be able to do it because I didn't put it in a location that I can get it from this computer, unfortunately, sorry. But anyways, I was showing some photographs today of some work that was done by our service garage. They're doing excellent work out there on our main ditches, our mains and minors. And I can't thank them enough for the work that they're doing. And I hope they keep going. We're doing excellent work out there. So with that being said, I'm gonna go down to agenda item C.
Something real quick, and Mr. Engineer, is this something that, if it's that important with the city and how because one of our main issues obviously is flooding. We've all dealt with it as council people. I know Councilwoman Swank and Councilman Winkle are on this, and that's probably our #1 email thing. Is this something that we would need to look back on and maybe reconvene finance committee to add the extra funds to, if that's higher end is a necessity to help prevent future issues?
At this point in time, I would say no to that. I would say although flooding is an issue within the community, we definitely want to ease into it. I think, like I said earlier, our Mills Creek project is going to take care of a lot of our flooding issues on the east side of the city. And that's already set in stone. Those wheels are turning, it's moving. Figuring out from basically Jay Cox south and west is going to be where our next kind of where we want to go. And I think if we break our stormwater management master plan into 2 phases, we could do a phase this year and do another phase next year. At least we don't have to spend that all this year, especially with the budgets being tight as they are, as we know, due to COVID. Budgets are tight this year. So and that's another reason for the phased approach. We want to kind of work on something that we know we can handle, and then, obviously expand that into next year. We'll put some more in the budget, and if that budget is approved by council, continue down that path.
I would agree with you. Having, we all sat on the finance committee meetings. This might be a rough year for spending that kind of money, but I just wanted to make sure that I agree with the phase approach. Thank you for the explanation.
Not a problem. Okay, so one other project, and again, as council people, we all and city personnel, we all know that we get a lot of calls for flooding basements or whatnot, and due to several different reasons, it's not always just the rainwater. But so what we've also done is, and some of you may remember or may not remember, that there was an equalization basin study done in about 2015 and 16 after a rain event that we had in May of 2014, which prompted the city to go out and hire a firm to do some flow monitoring, check where water was coming from different storms, and begin the process of looking into basically building a storage tank for what we like to call infiltration inflow in our sanitary sewers. So what that is basically groundwater getting into our sanitary sewers, and also direct flow from homes. Could be gutters, could be laterals, could be leaky foundations, drains that are connected to our sanitary sewers that then overload our sanitary sewers, which are not designed to carry that amount of water. So the city back in 14 initiated this after a storm that we had in 14, but due to the exponential cost of that project, it kind of fell by the wayside. Our report came back that we would need a $2 million gallon storage facility, and it would cost about $20 million to build that. So with that, it probably would have sent our rates through the roof, probably double or triple what they are today. And that just wasn't something that obviously the administration probably was not going to put onto our ratepayers. So we're revisiting that in a sense that we can, update that report, check what our flows are today. You know, we still have some of those same issues, and also verifying that the interceptor for the French Creek wastewater treatment plant that this flow goes into is able to carry that flow. So since we're at the top of the hill basically, and the bottom of the hill gets out first, because the plant's in Sheffield, if we're up here, the plant's down here, and everybody else dumps out before us, obviously we get stuck at the top without a good discharge. Very easy to get backed up. So we've seen that in the last couple of rain events that we've had back up. So we're asking French Creek to now take this over and investigate this and come back with a solution that is not only good for the community of North Ridgeville, but also for the other communities that use French Creek wastewater treatment plant. That's City of Avon and the Village of Sheffield Lake. So with that, hopefully they'll come back with a solution. Not only are we looking at still the Equalization Basin holding tank, we're also looking at either some kind of Y connections where we have a lot of head connections where they're basically fighting each other. We have flow coming in at one point and the flows are fighting each other, so they can't both get out at the same time. So what we're trying to do is maybe make some modifications to manholes where we Y in the flow so that they kind of join and pull each other out. That might be an option, a very much cheaper option. There's also some other recommendations that the firm is going to be working on for us for that. And that's going to help us alleviate or reduce the amount of basement flooding that we have in these rain events that keep coming more often. So that's what that project's about. We do have some flow monitoring going on right now. That report, we're hoping to have that by the end of February. So for our next meeting in April, I would be able to give a better update on where we stand with that. And then, so what we're looking for is some more recommendations, hopefully cheaper and less expensive than a $20 million storage tank. But at the end of the day, that may be the answer. And we'll have to see where it goes from there. But we are doing some further updates to that study to try to reduce and alleviate some of our basement flooding in our city. So those are kind of three big things that we've been working on, or that we are working on. And I just thought I'd throw those out there. And those are some good topping points that most people don't know about. And so that's what we're working on. We're working on a lot more than that, but those are just some highlights from our stormwater and kind of wastewater I&I issues that we have here. So with that, does anybody have any questions on that one?
Yeah, Dan, I have a couple of questions. Who's doing the flow monitoring now?
So we have AECom doing the flow monitoring. They actually have the monitors. I believe they have the contract for the French Creek wastewater treatment plant to do the monitoring at all the locations where flow exits the city and the other cities. So we're using that data along with, they also have a couple points within the city that they're monitoring currently to collect all that data to see what we need to do there.
Okay, and then my second question, what type of flows are we talking? Like what's the capacity of the plant and what do we have for these wet weather flows?
So for instance, in our last major storm in May of last year, our capacity is 11 million gallons per day. We were getting a flow rate of 60 million gallons in the plant in May. So the plant filled up 33 feet from the bottom. Usually it's only like 6 or 7. So we had 27 feet of head-ish in the plant during that May storm.
Is that 11 million secondary or primary treatment?
That's 11 million. Their average is 5 or 6 million a day. I think that's primary, 11 million
Okay.
primary. Yeah. And then they have secondary too, but that day in May, we had 60 million gallons. It was 33 feet, I think Corey Timko stated, in depth. And it ruined a computer room that was in that shaft that the water flows up through. So they ended up having some major damage at the plant during that storm.
Thanks. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add on to that French Creek. We are making moves to raise that computer room so that doesn't happen again, correct?
Yes, Mr. Timko, our superintendent over at the French Creek Water Plant, the director there, he's working on, if he hasn't already, he's already making those changes, if it hasn't been done already. They started immediately after that storm to make those changes. So I'm hoping that those changes have been made. I believe they had some space above there to move things up. So they were going to move those items up out of there as far up as they can, but it still could be a possibility that might happen again if we had those kind of flows.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're moving it up as high as they can, but it's also higher than most we've even seen in their major storms. So,
Correct.
But that's the best you can do. But at least it's going to be higher as possible.
Correct. Okay, is there any other questions?
Yeah, Dan, one more quick question. I assume the plant is not under any EPA mandates at this point in time.
Thankfully, at this point in time, we are under no EPA mandates.
Okay.
Good. These farms are tracked, by the EPA. And anytime there is an event where we may have to free discharge, those are tracked by the EPA. So at this point, I have no knowledge of we're not under any findings or anything like that. But we do need to get a handle on some of these things because at some point we could be under findings. So, and we don't want to be under findings.
No, it's not fun. Trust me.
Not at all. So I want to stay out of that. And I'm sure Mr. Timko wants to stay out of that as much as possible. Is there any other questions?
How are the ditch cleaning going with it being winter?
Actually, I'm going to say that it's actually going pretty well with the conditions that we had. It's actually, what's a good word for it? Advantageous right now because we can get in there, everything's dead. We can take out what's dead. I'm going to let Ray Ford from our service department, who's also a member of the board, maybe speak on that a little bit, Ray.
Yeah, so the biggest hurdle that we have right now is just that the ground is not completely frozen and it's sloppy wet. So depending on where we're at, we're trying to make the most impact without having to do the most damage basically in cleaning this. 2 projects that we have going on right now was trying to build the mounds at Frontier Park to alleviate some of the flooding over there and try to help divert the water a little bit. And then also the licorice ditch off of Stony. Because we were building those mounds, we have another machine that has to load those trucks. So usually we would have those 3, but it's quite a bit of dirt that we're moving from the service department there. But yeah, they're actually doing a lot better than I thought they would this time of year, just because it's not really frozen yet.
Thanks, Ray, for that update. Yeah, the work, like I stated, I wish I would have put that picture that I had in a place where I could share it on this computer. But the work that I saw today it's really good. So I'm pretty happy with what's going on out there, and Ray and his team and the service guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, Mr. Rodriguez, I'd like to add to that. I know you don't have a picture of it, but if anybody goes up to Frontier Park and just takes a peek, you'll see the impressive amount of work that's been done there, and of the widening and how the water is flowing completely different now. It looks like a completely different place. So it's a great use of, and that's a direct use of our stormwater utility monies right there. Put to work.
Yes, definitely. Okay. So with that, our next meeting is going to be April 27th, 2021. Depending on how we shake out with COVID, it may be in this same format. I'm hoping that it's not. I like to be in front of everybody and kind of be able to talk to everybody, and maybe draw on the board a little bit to kind of show everybody, you know, some different things. Instead, I'm using my hands this evening. So maybe the next meeting we could do it in person, but until then, we'll be in this format. If we can't do it in April, maybe in July's meeting, we can get back to a, in-person format with the vaccine rolling out. Hopefully that will help. But if nobody else has any other questions, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Is there any other questions?
No.
Oh,
Okay, so I'm just gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you at the next meeting. I hope I'll get the packets out a little bit earlier next time, so that we can, everybody be able to join in. Everybody have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
You too.
Good night.
Good night.
Anna.